Hi, I'm Shawn Comboy. I'm an executive coach and Hive 80 member. Now, I'm passionate about helping people solve their problems, fulfill their dreams, and maximize their potential. And coaching is one of the most powerful ways that I know to do it. Now, I know that coaching has started to become a buzzword these days. But what I'm realizing is that there are so many people who really don't understand what it is and also what it isn't. And probably most importantly, what it can do for you. So today, what I'd like to do is demystify coaching. And I'll do it by answering three questions. First, what is coaching? And also, what isn't it? Second, what can coaching do for you? And finally, when do you know when it's time to seek a coach? We'll start with the first one. What is coaching and how is it different from mentoring? Let's start with mentoring. So, a simple, broad definition of a mentor is an experienced and trusted advisor. Now, a mentor typically has experience or expertise in a particular subject, which puts them in a great position to give helpful advice. When I was working on getting my coaching certifications, as an example, I had a mentor who was also a coach. My mentor was an expert in what I needed to do and the steps that I needed to take in order to get certified, which was great because I didn't know. I knew that I wanted to get my certification, but I didn't know what I needed to do to get it. But what we have to remember about a mentor situation is that their advice is based on their experience and their point of view. In the example I shared about my mentor, I had no experience in what I needed to do in order to get my certification. And there was also no extenuating circumstances. So for me, my mentor's advice carried a lot of weight. I pretty much did exactly what they advised me to do. On the other hand, if there had been extenuating circumstances, say for example, I couldn't pursue the courses that they suggested because I had family obligations or it was too expensive, then their advice wouldn't have been as meaningful for me. I think the best way to think about and incorporate the advice of a mentor is to think of it as information that you can use to make your own decisions on just how you'll move forward. Now, I want to underscore that because ultimately you make your own decisions, you solve your own problems. So often we think of mentors as where we go to get answers, but mentors don't solve our problems for us. They simply provide us input, which brings us to coaching. Unlike a mentor, a coach isn't a subject expert. And unlike a mentor, they don't offer advice. Okay, so that's what it isn't. Let's look at the second piece. What is it? The International Coaching Federation defines coaching as partnering with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. Wow, so that's a mouthful. But what does it mean? Let's take a look. Let's break it down. Coaching is centered around the idea that the individual has the answers to their own problems. The coach isn't a subject expert. Rather, the coach partners with their clients to help them find their own answers. So let's sit with this one for a minute, because this is a big distinction. Coaches aren't experts. They don't offer advice. So I'll share a story. I had a client come to me early on in my practice. She was a new entrepreneur, had just started her business, I'm going to say less than a year in. Her goal, or rather what she wanted to get from working with me, was advice on how to build a successful business. I think you know where I'm going with this one. So I told her, I said, look, I'm not going to give you advice. And she was immediately disappointed. If I wasn't going to give her advice, how was I going to help her? So I said, look, I'm guessing you've asked for a lot of advice over the last few months. Oh, yes, she said. And I'm also guessing you've received a lot of advice. Oh, yes, she said. She had gotten advice from friends, from family, from experts. She had even gone so far as to seek out advice from an association that supported specifically businesses like her. And yet, here she was, talking to me. All that advice hadn't given her the answers that she was looking for. And I said as much to her. And at that, she paused. So finally, I said, look, it doesn't sound like you need any more advice. And if you'll trust me, I'm pretty confident I can help you. And she did. And yes, she was able to come up with some great answers for herself. Okay, so we've got it. Coaching is a partnership. Next, coaching is a process, but it's not sterile like I generally think of processes, meaning it's designed to be thought-provoking and focused on the individual and what's inside their heads, and ultimately helping them make sense of it. And finally, coaching is focused on helping the individual unlock their own potential. Now, that implies action, which is one of the things I like most about coaching. It inspires the individual to do something, to take a step forward, because we all know that if we don't take a step forward, we're never going to move. Okay, so let's put this all together. A coach is not an expert. A coach doesn't offer advice. When you work with a coach, you have a partner to support you in achieving your goal. You have a process for achieving your goal and for solving your own problems. And you're ultimately inspired to take the actions that you need in order to move forward. Okay, so we know what it is and what it isn't. So second question, what can coaching do for you? I think perhaps the best way to answer this is by telling you a story, my story. So as I shared, when I decided to get my executive coaching certification, figuring out how to do it wasn't that complicated, meaning I knew I had to seek out people and resources with expertise to guide me on what the steps were. However, deciding to leave a successful career in corporate America to pursue my dream was different. That was complicated. There was financial concerns. There was the fact that my identity was tied up in my career. I had fear that I wouldn't be good enough. I was worried that I would disappoint my loved ones. I was worried that I would perhaps embarrass myself if it didn't work out. On the other hand, I was no longer satisfied with my work. My constant travel wasn't allowing me to spend the time that I wanted to with my family. And I was fearful that I would blink and my life would be gone without me ever being truly happy. Wow. So that's a lot of feelings and fears and realities, many of which seem to conflict with one another. So what did I do? Well, I'd love to be able to say I went out and I got a coach, but I didn't. I did what so many of us do. I talked to a lot of people. I asked for a lot of advice, friends, family, experts, coaches. But while their advice was awesome, it didn't help me. I had to figure it out for myself. No one could tell me how all these feelings and fears fit together, which ones were the most important, or how I was going to make the finances work. This was on me. And even once I figured it out, the next thing I needed to do was muster up the courage to take action, to take one step forward, and then another, and then another. I got that eventually from a coach. So for me, coaching gave me the space that I needed in order to get my arms around what I was feeling. It provided me a framework to consider all those things and figure out first what I truly wanted and then how I was going to get there. And finally, it supported me in finding the courage I needed to take my very first step. Okay, so last question. When should you seek a coach? So there are really two parts to this. The first piece is it depends on the situation, meaning If you already know where you're going and just need some help on how to get there, then a mentor or even a friend's advice may be exactly what you need. On the other hand, if it's more complicated, like my situation, I wasn't sure what I wanted, let alone how I was going to get there. And that's when it's time to call in a coach. Now, as I said, there's a second piece, and this is important. You have to be ready to take action. You don't call a coach to commiserate. You call a coach when you're ready to make a change. Now, in my situation, it absolutely was not set in stone that I was going to become an executive coach. I could have chosen to stay in corporate America, but I was determined to enjoy the work I was doing, to scale back on my travel, and to prioritize time with my family. Now, if I'm being honest, it was my coach that helped me figure out that those were my three top priorities. I just knew that I wasn't happy and I was ready to do whatever it took to get there. Okay, so my goal was to demystify coaching for you, and I hope I've succeeded. Hopefully, I've gotten across what coaching is and also what it isn't, what coaching can do for you, and when do you know when it's time to seek a coach? I'm Shawn Comboy. Join me next time and we'll dig into some specific topics and how coaching can help.